Hi, this is Majinoni, and here's my review for Viz signature line manga called March Story. Now, as you can see, it's explicit content, and for the most part, it's not like there's a little bit of nudity, but for the most part, there's just a lot of blood and things like that in it. Now, when I first saw this, I'll be honest with you, I looked at the cover, and I was like, this has got to be one of the lamest things ever. Why would they even come out with this as a signature line? And keep in mind, when I saw this, I saw it like, like this. And then so, I was like, well, he does have horns, so there might be something going on. So I picked it up, and I noticed explicit content on the bottom. And I started looking through it, and I was like, oh, this is something a little bit different than what the cover might suggest. Now, March Story is a story of March, which is this guy right here. And basically, it reminds me a lot like The Gray Man, where March belongs to a society of people, and what they're doing is they're hunting down these things called ill. And the best way to describe an ill, I guess, is it's basically something like a demonic force that resides in something extremely attractive, something beautiful. Like, for example, a painting, a ring, a necklace, earrings, something to that effect. And what happens is it talks to the person that it's trying to seduce. And once that person wears that item or takes the item type thing, then what happens is it slowly starts to possess them. And eventually what it does is it causes them to take a life. Now, as long as the person doesn't take a life, then that person can be saved. But the minute they kill somebody, then that's when they're past that point of no return. And I'm trying to avoid too many spoilers, because I think part of the, I guess you can say, charm of the first issue was discovering everything. Because they really did put some thought into certain things that happen in this. But what I can say is this: it's not too much of a spoiler, is March has an ill inside of, and March uses the ill. Obviously, the ill is a little bit different, and it's basically they're going out and they're attacking other ill. Now, let me show you some examples of the artwork here. Now, see, like, for example, when I first opened it up, you had, like, immediately, this is right at the beginning, and I was like, oh, look at all this, they've got the thorns, and there's blood, and, March already captured its first ill. And then there's a lot of, like, crazy demonic type faces like that, as you can see there. As you would suspect, March's abilities actually get stronger as the story goes along. Like, it's not always just the same type of attack. And here's somebody here that's getting possessed, by the ill. Now, like I mentioned before, this is very similar to The Gray Man, but it's a lot, in a sense so far, it's a little bit different in terms of the way that the format's following. The beginning parts of the story is basically one-shot type issues, plot lines. But then eventually what happens is it starts going into more of March's past, and it sets up like a very tragic thing that's going to happen. You know it's going to happen, and you're just now going to wait for that moment to occur. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to start developing more of a long-term plot, as the story progresses. Because there's actually let me see if I can show it. There's an actual really, like, messed up villain. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing more people like that. Oh, and it's kind of, there's some nudity, so I guess I really can't show it. But, like, here's, like, another one. Just blood and gore type thing. So, I think I'm going to get the second episode, second issue, for sure. I don't know how long I'm going to stay with it. It's mostly going to depend on how much they develop March and the general story. But as long as it doesn't follow basic, like, you know, like here's a self-contained story, here's another self-contained story, and they don't develop story arcs. If they don't do that, then I'll definitely drop it. But for right now, it's still entertaining, and I'm really curious to see how the tragedy is going to unfold. I have some suspicion. Like I said, I don't want to ruin it because it'll ruin a lot to the basic part of the story here. But you know, so far, like I said, I enjoyed it. And and not all the ill are bad. There's some that are good, some that are bad, and this first volume here establishes that. So, at least I'm curious to see where it's going to go. If you have any comments or questions, just let me know. Rate the video up or down. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll try to get more manga reviews later. So until next time.